days, I think we can each other again on Wednesday and in the course of next week. First of all, of course, I would like to introduce myself to you. My name is Lars Mika. I'm a professor for tax law, specialized especially on international tax law and on accounting tax law and corporations and partnerships at the University of Finance of North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany. I'm a professor there since 2011, and I'm happy to be with you and to get some to provide you with some information on European law and European tax law. As an introductory part, I would first let you know why we are here today. This is due to the fact that our schools, our universities, got into a cooperation in May 2023 by signing a memorandum of cooperation. And I would like to talk to you at first about our goals of the cooperation. Yeah, the first goal, and that is what we are doing today and in the following days, is holding joint seminars and lectures, especially in the field of international European tax law and in the field of corporate and finance taxation. And this memorandum of cooperation was initiated by Dr. Wolfgang Kurs, who is also with us today. Thanks a lot for this. He on the one hand, and on the other hand, our Minister of Finance of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia were the founders of this cooperation. And the main subject is to work together on taxation fields, to have a dialogue with lecturers and as well on an administrative level. In this regard, I can tell you that we have some discussions with Wolfgang Boch and with Dr. Petrova, who you all know very well, I think. And we talked about what is possible to cooperate within our two universities. Because I can tell you that we in Germany, we do quite the same like you. You have a state university specialized in tax law, and my University of Finance is also specialized in tax law. And we are specialized in teaching students who want to become a member of the German tax administration in North Rhine-Westphalia. North Rhine-Westphalia is the biggest state of Germany. And per year, we have 1,500 to 1,600 students. And as I already told you, they want to get tax specialists. And I think that is the same with you at your nice university in Irpin. And we like to support student encounters and the university partnership. And we like to strengthen our interpersonal relationships between our two sides. This is the framework for our cooperation. And today, it is the first lecture to be given by me on the fields on European law, European tax law. And our aim is that there are a lot of lectures and seminars are to be followed. I think Wolfgang Boos already taught a lot of lessons in Irpin, especially on international stuff and on corporate tax law, as I understand the facts. And that should be developed in an appropriate way, and especially in a way in which both of our universities get information from the other sides. And it's always good to get to know each other. So please do not hesitate to ask any questions, or if you have any comments or questions, it's always very nice to get them. So please feel absolutely free to do so. You can also use the chat function of this Zoom meeting if you like to. And at the end of this day, I will also talk about, or will get into some case studies, so maybe we can do some work on this issue together. I appreciate this, and I'm very happy to be with you here today and on the following. Yeah, on the next chart, you see a picture of the castle where our institution has its seat. This is the castle of Nordkirchen. And this is the place where our cooperation has been signed in April. And this is also the seat of our university. As you see, Nordkirchen is a very small town in the northern part of North Rhine-Westphalia. By car, you go 1 to 2 hours by Cologne or Düsseldorf to go there. And it's located half an hour to the university city of Münster. And in North Rhine-Westphalia, as well as in all other states in Germany, the teaching of tax students for the tax administration is done in special units, in special universities. And the bigger states have their own universities, like North Rhine-Westphalia or Bavaria. And the aim of these universities is pretty much the same, like I think in your country. It's to teaching those students who want to become a member of the tax administration. And for this, we teach tax law for 3 years, and it ends with a diploma specialized in tax. And to be honest, not everyone who has learned taxation law at our university also becomes a member in the tax administration. A lot of people in Germany become tax advisors after that, or they study law and become attorneys or lawyers, or some of them also join other administrations. So this is the framework. This is the place where our cooperation started. And today and in the following days, we will deal with the subject of European law and European tax law. And what we are talking today and in the next sessions, on this chart, you can see the content of the lecture today and of Wednesday and of the 2 sessions which will be held next week. At first, I want to give you an overview of the European Union and want to say some things about the history of the European Union. I think it is good to understand the current European Union if we have a look in the past and see the developments in the past which took place since the 1950s. Yeah, after that, we will have a look into the international legal status of the European Union. This means that we will especially see how the European Union is governed, and we will have a closer look especially on the institutions of the European Union. As you know, every state or every association of states needs institutions to create the law, to administrative the law, or to judge whether some points of law are complying with the European law. And there we have a look what are the current institutions in the European Union. Yeah, after having a look at the responsibilities of the European Union, we will get an overview on the legal framework of the Union, and we will see which kinds of European law exist. There are especially 2 kinds, the so-called primary law, which contains the treaties of the European Union. I provided you with the main treaties, the Treaty of the European Union itself, and the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union. And there's also secondary law, which consists of regulations on directives, on certain decisions of the EU Commission. And we will see how this law is created by the European Parliament and the Council of Ministers, and we will see how this law is taken into force. We also will learn something about the budget and about the financing of the European Union. In the next week, there will be one of the most important subjects to be lectured in this course, namely the influence of the European law on national tax law. Because we will learn that the European Union has not the authority to create its own tax law. The tax law is still subject to the member states of the European Union, but the European Union provides a framework for the national tax systems. For example, we have very different kinds of taxation of corporations and partnerships in the European Union. On the other hand, the European Union has the right to fight against discriminations of the national law. So the European Union, and we will see that especially in the course of next week, will have a very big impact on the national tax systems. And this is quite interesting. And we will do also some case studies where we will see some judgments of the European Court of Justice, always concerning national tax law. And the question is always the same. It is the question whether a national tax regulation complies with European law or not. So this is the content of today and of the following sessions. So maybe it is a good point to start with an overview of the European Union and with the history of the European Union. Our aim is to understand the main principles of the European Union, and our goal is to see how the developments were in the last years. And of course, especially with respect to the Ukraine, as we all know, your country has applied for being a member of the European Union. And so I think it is a good thing if we understand a little bit better how to become a member of the European Union and what the process of being adopted as a member of the European Union is proceeded by the European authorities and, of course, by the authorities of your country. Of course, we will see that if you want to become a member of the European Union, all member states of the European Union must give their consent, and of course also your country must give its consent. And for that, it is maybe good to know, and maybe after we have finished our lectures, I will ask you the question, is this something the European Union which is something which is in advantage of your country, or would you say maybe there are some difficulties and maybe there could also be another solution, maybe cooperation or something like that. So that as I told you already, it's always good if you have any points, if you have any comments, if you have any further additional questions, please feel free. So if you start with an overview of the European Union, we have to say at first that at the moment, the European Union consists of 27 states. In former days, I think you already knew that we had 28 states, but Great Britain decided in 2016 to leave the European Union. It is the first state of the European Union who left it. In former days, we had only extensions of the European Union. At the moment, we stand with 27 European states. And of these 27, 20 form an economic and monetary union. That means that 20 of these member states are not only member to the European Union, but also use the euro as common currency. And this currency was introduced in 2002. And to put it this way, this is very specific of the European Union. We know all that we have a lot of free market association or free trade associations in the world, like, for example, the NAFTA or other states. But what we don't have in other jurisdictions is a monetary. The monetary union is introduced in 2002, and it says that each member of the European Union is obliged to use the euro as common currency as or if some conditions are met. The total population of the European Union is about 450 million at the moment. And the EU constitutes a legal entity, and it's in its own right, and therefore has the right to inspect and speak at the United Nations. It is important to know that the European Union itself had the quality of a legal entity. That was in the past that was not the case, but under the current treaties of the European Union, it has a known legal entity, which means, for example, that the European Union itself can be member of associations under international law, like the G7 or the G20, where the European Union is also a member. Yeah, the political system of the European Union is based on two treaties and two protocols to these meetings. This is, on the one hand, the Treaty on the European Union, TEU. It is the abbreviation of it. And on the other hand, it is the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. And these two treaties are the main sources of the so-called primary law of the European Union. And these treaties contain supranational and intergovernmental elements. You can say that these treaties are a kind of constitution of the European Union. And what is important to know is that these treaties need the requirement of the consent of all member states. So if these treaties are to be changed or are to be amended in the future, you have to know that all, at the moment, 27 member states have to give their consent to such amendments. So, and how it all started? Yeah, it started in 1951 with the so-called Coal and Steel Union. On this little map, you see the founding members of this Coal and Steel Union. These were France, Italy, Germany, and the three so-called Benelux states, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. And don't be confused. You see that Algeria at this point of time was also a member of this union. This was due to the fact that Algeria at this point of time was part of us. Yeah, what was the background of this Coal and Steel Union? Yeah, the Coal and Steel Union is in particular an idea to ensure lasting peace in Europe. That was the main purpose. And you see it, coal and steel are most important goods for wars. And you see World War II was over for 6 years when this union was created. And the main ideas for this union were issued by Jean Monnet on the one side, who was head of the French Planning Office. And he had the idea to put the coal and steel production as more economically important goods under a joint authority, namely under this Coal and Steel Union. And Robert Schuman, who is also one of the fathers of the European Union, you can say, took up this idea and presented it to Parliament on 1950. And this was called the Schuman Plan, and this was the very early beginning of the European Union, which was founded in 1951 with these, this time, 6 member states. And as I already told you, the main subject was to ensure lasting freedom in Europe, because as you see, 6 years before, especially Germany, France, as you all know, were opponents in war, and this should be ended forever with such kind of cooperation. The next step of integration took place in 1957. You see picture on the right side on this chart where the rooms where these treaties, so-called treaties of Rome, were signed. These treaties, which were consented by these 6 member states, the 6 founding member states, had the purpose to create a common market in which goods, services, capital, and labor could move freely. So this is the first step to create a free trade and a free trade union, as a lot of states in the world have entered into, like, for example, NAFTA, as I already told you. And through Euratom, this was also development for the peaceful use of atomic energy, because atomic energy, as we all know, is also a war-related good, and the idea was similar to the European Union of coal and steel, to promote an enduring peace through the states of the European Union. So in 1957, these common market, or the single market, is also called single market, was created by the 6 member states, Italy, Germany, the Benelux states, and France. And at this point of history, and for a long time, the union was a market union, a union which main purpose was to create a free trade of goods, services, and capital within the member states of this European Union. And that brings me to the next step, the Maastricht Treaty in 1992. You see here the River Maas and the city of Maastricht, where this treaty was signed by a lot of more member states. This treaty entered into force in 1993. And what was the main purpose of this treaty? On the one hand, the treaty decided to establish an economic and monetary union, which later led to the introduction of the euro. This is, in this respect, there's, as I already told you, a significant difference with other free trade zones. Normally, the other free trade zones in the world don't have a monetary union, and so you can say that one of the specifics of the European Union is such monetary union, because under this treaty, the member states of the European Union were obliged to introduce the euro as a common currency, if and to the extent some requirements under the treaties are met by the member states. We will see it on the later in the later stage as well, but I can tell you that it's not possible for every member state to become a member of the monetary union. You have to comply with certain conditions which are set out in some protocols to the European Treaty. And one of the main condition is that the national debt of a member state shall not exceed 60% of the gross income of members. Also, the new debt shall not exceed 3% of the gross income of an applying member. And I already told you that at the moment, 20 of the 27 states of the European Union have implemented the euro, and the other states do not at the moment. For example, Poland has not introduced the euro at the moment. The last country or the last member state who joined the monetary union is Croatia, which was also the last state who became a member of the European. Yeah, on the other hand, this is the first important information on the Maastricht Treaty, the implementation of the monetary union. On the other hand, the member states also decided on a closer coordination in foreign and security policy and in the area of home affairs and justice. So the European Union, which started as an economic free trade market, now became also a political union, which comprises competences in the field of foreign policy, security policy, also environmental policy. We will talk about the responsibilities of the European Union a little bit later. But you see that the Maastricht Treaty was an important development from an economic association to a political association dealing with a lot of. Yeah, because of this, or on this background, the European Community was renamed as the European or the European Economic Community. That was the previous name of the European Union, was renamed in the European Community. And this was due to the fact that that the Union was now given responsibilities in policy areas and was not only aiming to develop a free market. Yeah, let me talk a little bit about the last steps of the integration, or about amendments of the treaties of the European Union. Yeah, a few words on the treaties of Amsterdam and of the Treaty of Nice. As you can see, the treaties are always named on the city where the amendments of the treaty are implemented or signed by the member state. Yeah, with these two treaties, which came into force in 1997 and in 2003, respectively, the EU's treaty structure was revised, and especially the functioning of the institutions was made a little bit better, or a little bit more comfortable in this regard. You can see it here. Until the Lisbon Treaty, only the European communities had legal personality, not the European Union itself. And this meant that the European Community could take generally binding decisions within the scope of its competences, while the EU acted merely as an umbrella organization. And especially with regard to the common foreign and security policy, the EU could not act as an independent institution, but always only in the form of its individual member state. Yeah, this is the meaning of umbrella organizations. Before these revisements of Amsterdam and of Nice, the European Community was an umbrella organization representing the rights of the member states, but not being a legal entity by itself. That was amended. This was changed by this. always, it's also good to know that in these treaties, the so-called Copenhagen accession criteria were established. And these Copenhagen accession criteria, which were implemented in 1993, are still the criteria which a state has to be met or has to comply with when it wants to become a member state of the European. These criteria are especially freedom, democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and fundamental civil liberties. These are the so-called union's core values, and each state who wants to become a member of the European Union has to comply with these Copenhagen accession. And a little bit later, we will talk about how the question, how to become a member of the European Union. And then I will come back to these Copenhagen criteria. And if the Copenhagen criteria are met, it is possible to become a new member of the European Union. Yeah, the Treaty of Lisbon was signed in 2007, and that was the last integration or the last important integration step of the European Union. And yeah, among other things, it provided for the dissolution of the European Community and the transfer of its legal personality to the EU. So since 2007, the European Union has its name European Union, and it's left its name European Community. Yeah, and the background, the reason for this is that the European Union defines itself as a political union and not only as a community of states. So the legal independency of the European Union with respect to its member states is mentioned in this wording, European Union. Yeah, what is also good to know, the majority decision-making was expanded by this treaty. The size of the Commission was reduced before this treaty came into force. For example, every member state had the possibility to send 2 people to the European Commission as members. And as we can see a little bit later, the member states of the European Union increased and increased, and so it was not so comfortable to have so many members of the European Commission. And for this reason, this was reduced. It was also a fact that the common foreign policy was better coordinated. And first, this treaty was not ratified. The ratification failed first because the French and the Dutch rejected this new treaty in a referendum. As I already told you, all amendments, all changes to the treaties of the European Union are only possible if all member states give their consent to the amendment. One member state says no, there will be no amendment. And in this case, first the French and the Dutch rejected it in a referendum. On this stage, it is for every member state, it is in the member states' independent decision how they give their consent to an amendment of the treaties. So in some member states, there are referendum. So they ask the people whether they want the amendment or not. And in other cases, and this is especially the case in Germany, the parliament has to consent. And especially if there is a referendum to be held, sometimes it is difficult to get these amendments done, because this is due to political reasons. Sometimes the population does not want a further development of the European Union. I think sometimes it's easier to let Parliament do this. Yeah, but that was not the end. In 2007, the Treaty of Lisbon was adopted. You see a picture of the heads of government who signed it. And this Treaty of Lisbon came into force on December the 1st in 2009. And this is the current so-called primary law of the European Union. Yeah, as you know, I provided you with the Treaty on the European Union and the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union, as well as with other documents like a working paper and a case study. And these documents, these treaties you have received, are into force since 2009, and this is the current law of the European Union. Current, you can say, constitutional law of the European. Yeah, I have to say, or some additional thoughts on the challenges of the European Union. Also important to talk about these challenges, because as we all know, the European Union is also criticized by member states. And of course, if I want to show you the whole picture of it, so you have to say that especially in the last years, the European Union was to some extent under pressure. That was due to the fact, or on the one hand, especially the financial crisis was one of the reasons which challenged the European Union, because some member states got in trouble, or in serious trouble, managing their national debt. And as we know, that these national debt crises entered also in a so-called Euro crisis, because since then a lot of member states were not able to comply with the general condition of the European Monetary Union to have national debt below 60% of the gross domestic income. And therefore, especially after 2010, a number of measures were initiated to address the Euro crisis, especially the European Stability Mechanism and the European Fiscal Compact. And these measures had, on the one side, the advantage that the Union provided financial aid to countries with, especially with difficulties to pay back their debt. But on the other hand, the European Union also demanded reforms to reduce debts and to be more competitive with other economies in the European Union. And as we all know, that this is always a point where not all member states were satisfied with. And of course, that is absolutely for sure. We have a lot of differing political opinions in the European Union. We have socialist ones, we have conservative ones, we have liberal ones, green ones. And so in these financial crisis, there were a little bit, let's say, tightening of the interdependencies of the different states. Yeah, and the second crisis was the refugee crisis from 2015 onwards. I have to admit that to some extent there anti-European political thoughts also increased, especially in some member states, also in Germany. Not everyone is satisfied with the European Union on this field of politics. Some people or some analysts say that the refugee crisis was also one of the reasons Great Britain quits the European Union in 2016. And we have very differing political thoughts on coping with that refugee crisis in Europe. As you may know, Germany's position was quite liberal position on that. Other countries like Hungary and especially Poland refused to take a lot of refugees in their countries. And this is the last chart on the history of the European Union. We have to say that, of course, the European law is prevails every state's law in the member states. So if a national law or national regulation or even the national constitutional law does not comply with European law, then the European law prevails. And it is a common opinion in the European Union that the European Court of Justice is the institution which decides whether a national law complies with the European law or not. But especially in the last years, we had some experience that some member states did not comply even with judgments of the European Court of Justice. And so maybe I've expressed this on this chart. There will be a decision or at least a trying what it means it should use the future to respond to open breaches of treaties by these governments. Or put it in other words, how can the European Union react if a member state does not comply with European law or does not comply with a judgment of the European Court? Of course, if a member state does not comply, for example, with the ruling of the European Court of Justice that the member states are obliged to take part in the distribution of refugees, for example, the European Union has the possibility to have a fine on or to issue a fine on the non-complying member state. But if this fine is not paid, there is another level to be seen. And in this regard, in the last years, the EU responded by withholding financial aid to the member states. But of course, that is a problem, and we also should talk about the problems and as well as of the large range of advantages the European Union gives member states. So this is a little bit a kind of overview of the history of the European Union. And as to summarize it, now we stand with the Lisbon treaties, which are in force since 2009. So I will have a short break, maybe, and like to ask you if you have any questions to this, to the subjects we talked about in the last 40 minutes. whether there is a question in that. So please feel absolutely free if you have any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, there are no questions. And if you have a question, please use the chat, or you can also speak directly to me or after the lecture, as you want to. So this brings me to the membership in the European Union. So I want to provide you with information on how to become a member of the European Union and what are the current members of the European Union. Yeah, we talked about the founding members, so I can keep this very short. As I told you, the European Community was created in the 1950s by 6 member states, by Germany, France, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, as well as Belgium. And you can say that these are the founding members of the European Union, and they are generally regarded as possible integration theories. The European Union is not possible, or it's not imaginable, without these member states, because they give the European Union its spirit, and they are responsible to provide the further integration. Well, as all the other member states, of course, but these states are also of an importance because they founded the European. Yeah, you see on this chart on page 18, this is a dynamic chart where you can see the extensions of the European Union. As you know, we started with 6 member states, and now we stand with 27. And you see that also in the southern part, as well as in the eastern part and in the northern part, the European Union was extended by a lot of states. And to give you a little bit more detailed information, you can see on this chart when these integration steps took place. And you see in the early 70s, the United Kingdom, also Great Britain, Ireland, and Denmark joined the European Union. In Norway, this is Norway also tried once or 2 times they applied for the European Union, but you see the ratification of the accession treaty was rejected by its population, and it was rejected twice. So it is always, as I already told you, if you become a member or want to become a member of the European Union, all current member states have to give their consent, and also the European Parliament has to consent, and of course the applying member state or the candidate state also has to ratificate the ratification agreement or ratification. And the law in Norway, it was regretted. In the 80s, we got Greece, Portugal, and Spain. As you all know, in 1919, Germany was reunified, and the former area of the former German Democratic Republic became a member. Then 1995, Austria, Finland, and Sweden joined the Union. And then we had in 2004 and 2007 a great expansion on the Eastern European countries. Yeah, you see Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Slovenia, the state of Malta, and the island of Cyprus joined in the EU in 2004. 2004, and in 2007, Romania and Bulgaria became members of the European Union. And the last member state who joined the European Union was Croatia in 2013. Yeah, and as you see, Croatia became the 28th member state. And as we all know, in 2016, we had the first reduction of the European Union, and a referendum in the United Kingdom decided majority of this referendum, which, by the way, was not binding, but the British government decided to treat it as binding. And yeah, as you can see, it over 50% of the British voters decided to leave the European Union. Yeah, it's also possible to leave the European Union. This is ruled by Article 50 of the Treaty on the European Union. And if you want to leave the European Union, it is not possible to leave by an instant, but there is a time being. So as you can see, the decision or the referendum deciding to leave the European Union was in 2016, and the withdrawal of Great Britain from the European Union took place January 31st in 2000. So there is a period of time which needs to be taken, because so many things are to be coped with. Especially you have to answer the question, what is with the free market, what is when the members of Great Britain has to leave the European institutions. A very big range of areas have to be discussed, and so that this is the background for this for such a big time between the decision to leave, the decision to Brexit, and the concrete withdrawal. Yeah, the current member states and candidates are set out in this chart on this little map. And as you can see, most important for us today, of course, is that you are a candidate state, as well as some other candidate states. You see, especially Turkey is still a candidate for joining the European Union. And you see some more smaller states, Balkan states, which also applied for being a member of the European Union. And when we have a look at the legal framework to become a member of the European Union, you can see that we have an Article 49 of the EU treaty, and there is set out that any European state that respects the values of the EU and is committed to promoting them may apply for the EU membership. And the accession can only be completed if the so-called Copenhagen criteria are fulfilled. Yeah, that's, I mentioned before, the importance of these Copenhagen criteria. These Copenhagen criteria were set out in 1993, and especially the democracy and the rule of law are the main criteria, as well as human rights, for example. And these criteria have to be met by a candidate, and if these criteria are met, then all EU member states, the candidate country, and the European Parliament can ratify an accession treaty. And in this case, also, of course, your beautiful country of Ukraine could become the member of the Union. The process of becoming a member of the European Union is, to be honest, pretty long, because there are some regulations in place. For example, as you can see it on this chart, to meet these conditions, the EU provides both advisory and financial assistance to candidate countries, which is a good thing, I guess. But there are, to some extent, some alignments, or you have to have a lot of discussions, and you have a training process with the cooperation assistance for administrative development. So it is not easy to say how long it takes to become a member of the European Union. It is, to be honest, it is a political question. If all member states say the Copenhagen criteria are met, and if all member states of the European Union want another country to join the Union, it is possible if, of course, the European Parliament also says yes, and if the candidate country also gives its consent to the accession treaty. And you have to say that if you become a member of the European Union, then normally all the provisions of the treaties, as well as all of the law of the European Union, are also applied to this new member state. So a new member state has to comply with the European treaties, and has also comply with the so-called secondary law of the European Union. These are especially directives and regulations. You will see it especially in the course of next week, when I will provide you with information on these directives and regulations concerning tax law provisions in the member state. And it is, as you can imagine, there are a lot of things governed by EU law at the moment, and so the process of becoming a member of the European Union is sometimes a little bit. But to be honest, the main thing is that, in my opinion at least, that it is a political decision of the member states and of country who wants to join. One last thing about membership of the European Union is that there is an alternative to be a full member of the European Union. These are the so-called EFTA states. Yeah, what is the meaning of EFTA states? The European Union also maintains special relations with some other neighboring countries. These neighboring countries are not members of the European Union itself, but joined the European Union in the European Economic Area. So the regulations of the European single market, so of the trade union and of the economic union, also apply for these states if they become a member of the European Free Trade Association. And at the moment, in this European Free Trade Association, there are, on the one hand, of course, all 27 member states of the European Union, and as well Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. These are the three states who are members of the so-called European Economic Area Agreement. And the internal market regulations of the Union also apply to these EFTA countries. This is a reason that, for example, that the general freedoms of the EU treaties also apply for Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. So, but disadvantage for these states, but they decided on their own that they didn't want to get a full membership of the European Union, but only want to member of the European market. The disadvantage is that they don't have that they are not represented in the EU institutions. So they're having a say in the they don't have a say in the EU institute. And so you can say that these three states are economically but not politically integrated the European Union. They are all also members of the Schengen agreements. That means that the open border system of the Schengen agreement also applies to three states. For example, Switzerland has never joined the European Union, and they neither did to the European Economic Area, but they have entered into certain agreements with the European Union itself, providing some cooperation, especially on free market. But of course, it is in the sole sovereignty of the state if it wants to become a member of the European Union or of the European Economic. Yeah, let's. This brings me to the legal status of the European Union. Let me say a few words on this international legal status. And I think some of the things we already have discussed about. Yeah, the legal basis of the European Union is currently two international treaties. On the one hand, the Treaty on European Union, which was concluded in Maastricht in 1992, as I already told you. And on the other hand, it is the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, concluded in Rome, and as the EEC Treaty, renamed the EC Treaty and given its current name. And these two.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Guten Tag.
Yeah, guten Tag. Yeah.
My name is Mikola. I'm an international law student.
Yeah.
I have some question about
absolutely
membership, and I want to look ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
So about the United Kingdom, which leave the European Union, I want to ask a question: how it affects the economy? Does it affect trade with European Union countries? For example, double taxation, or does the country may lose priority in the economic market?
Yeah.
Whether they leave when they leave.
Thank you very much for your questions. These are very good questions. This is a range of questions. Let me start with a question on the economic situation in Great Britain. I would say, a majority of the economists in the European Union say that it is of disadvantage for Great Britain that they left the European Union, because now they are not anymore member of the free trade market, of the single European market. Means that especially the fundamental freedoms of the treaties do not apply anymore with regard to business between the European countries and Great Britain. On the other side, you can also see the economic development in Great Britain, and to some extent they are doing well, especially the they have some increases of their market, but it is an economic question. A lot of people say, for example, that it is a big disadvantage for Britain that because they lose a lot of people who were in former days working in Great Britain as European as members of the European Union, and now are not anymore members of the European Union. So a lot of people say it is of disadvantage for the British. If you ask some politicians in Britain, who, of course, there are always two sides of the story. If you ask one of them, one of the Conservative party or one of the Independency Party members, they will maybe ask you, or may answer you, it is an advantage because we are not restricted by the European Union anymore. We can do what we want to. We don't have to pay large amounts of contributions to the European Union. These were some arguments, especially the Brexit campaign, put in the discussion. For political reasons, I can see that I think that the British also try get a little bit more close, or to get more close to the European Union in the last months. But all parties in Great Britain, the Conservatives as well as Labour, who has very good chances to be the next government of Britain, they all say we don't want to come back, and they all also say that they don't want to be a member of the European Economic Union. What would also be possible, but they don't. Could you repeat? I think you had some more questions. Could you be so kind to ask?
Yeah, does it affect to the economy? About, for example, double taxation?
Yeah. Okay. For double taxation, it is not. I think it is not a serious problem because Great Britain entered into double taxation treaties with all member states, and these double taxation treaties, as you all know, try to avoid or to reduce double taxation. So we have in Germany we have a double taxation treaty with the British as well, and so do the French, the Dutch, Italy, and all member states. What is a little bit of disadvantage for the British that they are not anymore member of the European Union is that a lot of provisions in, for example, in German tax law, say that there are some exemptions and exemptions or some advantages in the field of taxations if you are a member of the European Union. And since they left, they don't have these advantages under this law anymore. There was a period of time when Great Britain was regarded as a member of the European Union with regard to these advantages given by national law. This is not more in the case. So they have some disadvantages with respect to regulation, saying you have to be a member of the European Union if you want to get tax advantage 1, 2, 3. But they don't have any disadvantages in general with regard to double taxation because with all European member states, Britain entered in. So, do you have
Thank you.
additional question, or is this sufficient for your purpose? Okay. Thank you very much. These treaties are also referred to as European primary law, and we will see that there is also secondary law. Secondary law means that there are regulations in the European Union, especially directives and decisions and regulations which are created by the European Parliament and by the European Council. And these secondary law, this has also a big impact on national tax law. We will see this next week. And this law, this secondary law, has to be compliant to the European primary law. So you can say that the treaties have the function of a constitution of the European Union. This is the most important law in the European Union. So let's do our last step for today. If you have an association of 27 member states, you need some institutions to govern this association. And we have to have institutions who create the law, so who create regulations, directives, who create the so-called secondary law. And on the other hand, we need institutions who enforce the law or who govern or execute the European Union. And thirdly, of course, we need an institution which decides whether the member states comply with the European law or not. So I want to give you a short overview on the institutions of the European Union today. And if you have a look at Article 13 of the EU Treaty, you can see that which kind of EU institutions are set out in this treaty. Maybe we can have a look in this treaty as well. If you have this treaty on your desk or if you have it in a digital way, I will show you the relevant provision. So there it is. You see in the Treaty on the European Union, Article 13. And this Article 13 says the Union shall have an institutional framework which shall aim to promote its values, advance its objectives, serve its interests, those of its citizens and those of the member states, and ensure the consistency, effectiveness, and continuity of its policies. Oh, and there it comes. The Union's institutions shall be the European Parliament, the European Council, the Council. It is a little bit confusing because the name is pretty similar. The European Commission, the Court of Justice of the European Union, and the European Central Bank and the Court. So, and these are all the institutions mentioned and in the treaty, and these are the institutions to govern the European Union. On the next chart, you have an overview on these institutions, and you can see, if you have a look at it, of course, if you see the people of the member states, the people of the member states vote on the one hand for their national parliaments, of course, and they also vote for the members of the European Parliament. Yeah, the European Parliament is the Parliament of the European Union, and it is directly elected by the populations of the member states. And we have a little bit look forward. These national parliaments, of course, create or appoint the national governments, and the national governments are represented in the Council of Ministers, that is the Council of the European Union. And what you can see here is, this is one of the most important things, that the legislation of the European Union consists, on the one hand, of the European Parliament, and on the one hand, of the Council of Ministers. So this is the legislation of the European Union. And you see that there is, of course, the European Court of Justice. The European Court of Justice we will have a look at on Wednesday. The European Court of Justice is here elected, while their members are appointed by the national governments and the Council of the Ministers. And we have a third very important institution. This is the European Commission, because the European Commission is the institution who governs the European Union. And you can see the president of the European Commission at the moment. It is a German lady called Ursula von der Leyen, as you know. She was appointed by the European Council, and she is also confirmed by the European Parliament. And these three institutions are the main, or are the heart of the institutions of the European Union, because on the one hand, we have a legislation consisting of the Parliament and of the Council of the Ministers. Then we have an executive body. This is the European Commission, and we have the European Court of Justice as the institution who decides whether a national tax law, tax regulation, or national tax law is compliant with the European law or not. We have also the European Council. The European Council, we will see it a little bit later, consists of the heads of states, especially of the prime ministers of the European Union. And the main function of the European Council is to appoint the president of the European Commission, and to give to give some impulses to the legislation. So these are the different institutions, and only a few words to the institutions at the end of our today's session. The European Parliament. I already told you that the European Parliament is one of the bodies of the legislation of the European Union in coexistence, let me say it so, with the European Council. And of course, the Parliament has the functions of a regular parliament, as we know it from the Ukraine, and as we know it from Germany, from France, from everywhere. They have a legislative function, they have a budgeting function, the control function. And the most important thing to know is that it shares its legislative function with the Council of the European Union. It's not able to do legislation by its own. They always need also the Council of the European Union. The Council of the European Union, this institution consists of a minister of all member states. So the Council of the European Union is run by, or let's put it this way, every member state has the right to send one person, a ministry or a secretary of state, to this council, and in combination with the European Parliament, they do most of the legislation work. Especially the ordinary legislative procedure is run by the Parliament on the one side and by the European Council on the other side. At this point, I will come to this a little bit later in more detail. If we talk about tax law, tax regulations, tax directives in the European Union, you have to know that not the European Parliament is responsible to create tax law, but it is only the Council of the European Union. Because only if a certain subject is subject to ordinary legislative procedure, the European Parliament has to consent to a directive or to a decision. Tax matters are due to special legislative procedures, and therefore only the Council of the European Union is the institution who has the right to create such tax law. This is important to know, but I will come to this when we concentrate on the tax-related European law. The European Parliament has also an appointment function. You see it there. It elects the President of the European Commission. This is at the moment Ursula von der Leyen. However, they don't have the right to nominate the President of the European Commission. This is in the competence of the European Council, so the heads of government of the member states. They have the possibility to nominate whomever they want to. The European Parliament also has a function there in the regard that the European Council has to take into account the results of the previous European elections. At the moment, the Conservatives are the biggest fraction in the European Parliament. So you can say it should be a person who belongs to a conservative or to a Christian European Union. Yeah, the Parliament also confirmed the entire Commission. This means that every Commission member has to be consented by the Parliament, and additionally, the Parliament can force the resignation of the Commission through a vote of no confidence. However, this has not taken place in history of the European Union, and you can see it at the end of this chart. You need two-thirds majority if such vote of no confidence. It has simply not yet applied in the history of the European Union. Then a second institution, we have the European Council. You see here a picture of the heads of government. The European Council is currently chaired by Charles Michel. I think you know him. He's also one of the persons who is interested in having especially the Ukraine as member of the European Union as soon as possible. He's a former Prime Minister of Belgium, and he is the President of the Council. And according to Article 15 of the EU Treaty, the European Council shall give the Union the necessary impetus for its development and shall define the general political guidelines and priorities for it. So it is an institution which is not directly involved in the legislation or in the execution of the European Union, but has the function to deal with important issues, and especially they have the function to develop consensus in the European. Yeah, the Council of the European Union, as I already told you, consists of one representative per member state. It must be authorized by the member states. For example, if there is a tax matter to be discussed in the European Council, an amendment to a tax directive or something similar, then Germany or in the future, the Ukraine would send their finance minister to this institution. Each member state has the right to send one person to this institution. And I already told you, this is a legislative body. they decide normally in combination with the European Parliament whether a European law is to be implemented or not. And in special areas, especially in the area of tax law, they are the only legislative body decides whether a tax law is amended or created, like this. As we can see it here on this chart, of course, if you have the regulation that every member state sends one person, then there is a need that there have to be qualified majorities to implement. But otherwise, especially the smaller member states like Malta, Luxembourg, Denmark, or some other states could overvote the largest countries. And what you can see at the moment, it is set out in this way: at least 55% of the member states have to agree. So currently 15, and these member states shall represent 65% of the EU population. And your question, question you a few minutes before this, here is an impact of the Brexit. Yeah, Great Britain has a population of, I think, 60 to 70 million people. And since the British left the European Union, you can see that these majorities, 55%, 65%, they have changed. So at the moment, it is easier, especially for the southern states like Italy or Spain, to get some regulation done, which maybe not would have implemented if the British were still there. So there you have an impact because especially Britain is a stability country and always a little bit reluctant to lots of EU regulation, and so there we have an impact of the. Last of all, we have the European Commission, which is set out in Article 17 of the EU Treaty. And the EU Commission is especially the executive body of the European Union. And it is comparable to the government of national states. And the main functions of the EU Commission is the implementation or they ensure that European law is implemented correctly. It implements the budget of the Union and it carries out the agreed funding program. So it is a very powerful institution consisting of one commissioner of each member state and of its. And that's one last thought for today. Maybe you can also see the European Commission as a guardian of the treaties, and this means that the Commission has the function to oversee whether the member states comply with the obligations under European law, and that they have entered into with the EU treaty and the secondary law. So if the Union's Commission see that a member state does not comply with the treaties or with a European directive or regulation, then it can claim that the state has to comply with such. And if in the event of infringement of the law by the member states, the Commission can also initiate infringement proceedings before the European Court of Justice. Here you can see the Bellamont building. This is the seat of the European Commission in Brussels. Yeah, as you know, Brussels main headquarters, main one of the main capitals of the European, and there is its main seat. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear students, we have now 90 minutes discussed about some fundamentals of the European Union. On the following charts, you can also see some case studies which deal with the things we were talking today. I think we can leave this out for today. Maybe we can have a look at it on our next meeting, which takes place on Wednesday, I guess. And I think it's 3 o'clock p.m. at your time. In German time, it is 2 o'clock. I like to say thank you to all of you for today. But I want to ask you whether there are some questions and remarks or comments on your side. I have a look at the I think this is not the case. So I want to say, okay, let's call it a day. It was a pleasure to lecture to you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you Wednesday when we deal with the implementation of European law and on its impact on national law, especially on national tax law. Thanks a lot. Have a nice afternoon. Take care. See you on Wednesday. Many thanks.
Thank you for lecture. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you too. Bye-bye. See you on
Thank you
Wednesday.
for lecture.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Take care, all of you, and
Yes. Take care.
thanks a lot.
Thank you, and looking forward for next lecture.